Hello, world. You're listening to Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, where we're always creeping it real. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner. My guest has been able to communicate with departed loved ones and the spiritual realm. She gives no bullshit connection to the advice you'd expect from your best friend. Since starting this journey professionally, she obtained multiple certifications, including her bachelor's in metaphysics, 4 different modalities at the master level of healing, and an array of other certifications. Her ultimate goal is to bring healing at a soul level. Her filter is low. She'll bring a lot of energy to the forum. She has a loyal fan base and her own regional prime television show called Ghostly Encounters and her own podcast called The Spiritual Shit Show. Please join me in welcoming today's guest, Jessica King.
Hey.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited.
Some people have spiritual gifts. For the listening audience, I like to define spiritual gifts as God's supernatural ability showing up in our lives in various ways. And there are a good many of gifts as well, such as the gift of healing or the gift of foresight. Jess, what would you consider to be your spiritual gifts?
I am a natural born medium, so as early as I can remember, I saw things that other people did not see. I remember having lots of experiences and was told that I had a very overactive imagination as a child, but it really was not an overactive imagination. I really did see stuff that other people did not see. It started there, and that's really, I guess, was always my front runner of what I had known that was there. But I've grown through my gift and started working more with it and really connecting with it. I have realized that there is a lot that was there that I did not have access to. And I don't know if that was, I think a lot of that was from learning myself and tapping into the energy. So energy work and healing work has definitely been a natural gift that came without any sort of prompting for me. So it really was something that just happened, and it was really interesting as a process. But I see, hear, and talk to, and can kind of, I guess, have those what a lot of people consider empathic type traits. That's clairsentience of this feeling and the seeing and the hearing of spirits, and then of course it just expanded from there as I've trained myself.
A lot of how people grow in these spiritual gifts has a lot to do with their upbringing and how your family relates to it. I know my mom was always telling me I was having nightmares. You were just dreaming. It's not real. Some people go through that you're crazy. And then you have others that actually nurture those gifts in their children, which I find from experience in interviewing people are the most developed and experienced, I would say, because they've been doing it for so long and they've had people support them in that gift.
Yeah, totally embrace it. When you experience stuff like what I kind of went through, which was you have an overactive imagination, and then when they could not explain it away anymore, and I don't judge my parents for what, because met my mother and I finally, had long discussions about it, but she didn't know how to deal with it. She didn't know what to do, and since we were also, we're in this Bible Belt, obviously you can tell by I have a Southern accent. So when we were growing up, it was not of God, it's not of what we're supposed to do and things like that. And so it put up a lot of barriers for me, and it had me opening and closing and kind of not sure what to do with it. And you're right. There's people that I have met that they support their children, and it's just a beautiful thing to see.
And I've also found that those nurtured gifters have come from families who have a history of this that has been in the family, like whose grandmother was a gypsy or whose grandmother could see things and read the tarot and that sort of thing. And so they've already experienced it in generations past. So when they see it come up in their children of present, like you said, they embrace it.
They celebrate it.
Yeah.
It runs all through my family. The gifts do. The visions were always accepted.
Right. How do you use your gifts in your daily life?
How do I use my gifts in my life at this point? A lot of it was running, but in the last, we're looking at about 11 years now that I actually started to choose to open myself up to it. When I first started, I was like what I dubbed a closet psychic, and I would deliver the messages to people that would literally be brought to my front door of my home. And it was friends or people that had heard and they needed something. And so I would deliver messages of their departed loved ones. I would share with them certain things that they needed to be aware of to try to help them in their life. And I went down that for several years, and Spirit kept telling me that it was not going to be the path that I was going to be able to stay on, that I had to actually kind of come out of that closet and start talking about my gifts and sharing it more with the world. And I told him that I didn't want to. I was good in the closet.
Obviously, you have these gifts for a reason, so you have to do something with them.
That's what they said. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm happy right where I'm at. And they dragged me out of the closet face first down a gravel road is the way I guess I like to put it, because I lost my first corporate job ever in 20 plus years in corporate sales. I was terminated, and I'm a single mom, so I just launched 2 businesses out of necessity and just having to do something to make income, and refurbishing furniture and talking to dead people. And I found out that people find it a lot more interesting that you talk to the dead, and it's less physically challenging.
Yeah. More accepting of late than it was, say, 30 years ago.
It is literally, it's been really interesting to watch as it's unfolded, because it's even more accepted now than it was even 5 years ago. I mean, there's been a lot of shifts in people's thought processes, as far as, especially with everything that has gone on with COVID and everything else. The people are becoming more and more trying to understand the state of where we are. And they're also there's a lot of people that are feeling very broken and uncertain and needing some sort of understanding as to what in the hell's going on right now.
And how do you receive these messages? How do they come to you?
A variety of ways. I've gotten messages. Literally, it's like I have a phone line where I get them in a variety of ways. It's almost like I have a phone line to the spirit realm. And a lot of times they just tell me things. And the thing that I think most people misunderstand is they think that you'll all the time like see folks, see dead people, or it's an audibly out loud message, but it's actually learning to tap into being able to hear that your intuition and recognize that it's actually coming from the spirit realm. So, because sometimes they can't actually audibly connect with you, depending on how strong they are. So a lot of times it'll come through, as signs of, I've got this jar on my desk that was my signs when I was really hard-headed. It's a jar full of it's screws and change, and it is dice and stones. And I mean, they've literally been thrown at me at a certain point to get my attention and tell me to pay attention to what they were trying to tell me.
Interesting. Well, for example, you and I are together. Is it like a doorbell that goes off in your head and says, oh, I've got a message for Eleanor?
A lot of times I get intense ringing sometimes. Sometimes it is just literally, it's like somebody says, I will hear them say, you need to reach out to, or this is about to happen. This is coming down, this is going to be coming up. And they just started out a lot with dreams, because I was struggling. I didn't want to connect because of how scary some of the stuff that came to me was, especially when you see stuff that's of a darker or lower vibration. It can be rather alarming to see. And so it really did kind of leave me a little uncertainty. So they started at my dreams until I got a little bit more comfortable with how they would come to me. So now it's just a variety of ways. Sometimes, I will audibly hear them out loud. Other times I will see them and they're like, hey, I got something to tell you. And
all right. So you said you've mentioned that they'll come to you and they'll say, we have this message that you have to give to Joe Schmo. Yeah. But I pretend like I'm a client and I'm seeking you out because I'm looking for answers. So I come to you and I say, Jessica, I'm trying to get in touch with my deceased father. And is that how it works?
Yeah, everybody that will reach out to me. I've done live sessions where I will have people just join in on Facebook Lives and they say, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with my father. I'm trying to get in touch with my uncle, my brother. And I don't see the people. I don't see them even who I'm speaking to on the Facebook Lives. And as soon as they ask, that member of their family will step forward. And a lot of times what I get is an evidentiary medium. So it actually they will give me evidence of who they are. So I will generally experience, a lot of times when someone steps forward, I will experience the way that they pass or medical conditions. So I can experience a heart attack. I've been shot. Whatever way that they passed, I will generally temporarily experience that feeling so that I know that it's them. And then I can verify that with their family member. Hey, look, I just had a gentleman that stepped forward. This is what he was going through at some point, probably right at his passing or her passing. And this is what I'm experiencing. Is that makes sense to them? And as soon as they, give that confirmation, which I have to give all glory to spirit because it's not me, they step in and I kind of step out. But I do feel the different pains and different things to guide me through that process.
And what kind of messages have come through, for example?
Oh, gosh. I've had people ask them about the time that they peed their pants. I've been told to tell husbands to tell their wives to not leave home without her panties. Some of the strangest messages, but it's stuff that is like, it was a joke between them.
Oh, that's kind of the confirmation you mean that you give to the people to see that it's...
I've got random ones.
Oh,
a lot of times they'll send stuff like, I love you, but then they also will tell me like random stuff that was like jokes between them that only they would know.
Right. So that would convince them that this is who you're speaking to. Okay. So you've reconnected these two together, the living with the deceased, and now they want to receive a message. What kind of messages do they give to you for the other person?
It can be a variety of things, and it honestly depends. I mean, a lot of times if it is like if it's a suicide, or if there was something that I think was self-inflicted, then there is generally a lot of messages about them saying that it was not their fault, as far as like the other person's fault, or there was nothing they could do to stop it. They always want to make sure that they can clear them of any guilt, because a lot of times there is a lot of guilt within those situations. And then there's generally also, they want to let them know certain things that maybe they had hid from them, like some things about their emotional state or stuff that was going on in their life that they were experiencing that they just were struggling with, and they didn't feel like that they really had any other choices. I've had some that were in other types of tragedies where they were murdered, and they wanted to share information about healing and not being angry with the person that had killed them, because they don't want them to live their life that way. There is really can just depend on the situation. I've had parents that were abusive that came back to say they were sorry. A lot of times it is their trying to make peace with whatever happened, and make sure that the person that's left here to still kind of manage this realm, for them to have peace.
I see. So that they are able to move forward with their life, kind of have closure to whatever it was that was keeping them from moving forward.
Yeah.
How often do you do these sessions and Facebook Live sessions?
I don't do the Facebook Lives as much anymore. I did a lot of those when I was first starting out, just for the fact there's a lot of people in this industry, unfortunately, that are not legit, or that can't really, I guess, provide the messages and the information that these people are desperately seeking. So I did a lot of those on the front end to kind of, I guess, give people an understanding as to what I could do when I connected with spirit. So my lives are very, very few and far between now, but I do my readings daily. I mean, that is my full-time profession at this point, is to do healing sessions, to connect with the departed, and also to deal with paranormal activity in people's homes that they're experiencing, that's possibly leaving their house in a turbulent situation.
So you kind of do what I do, but for a different reason. Well, no, I shouldn't say it's that much different. I mean, I started out as an author, which I've always been, and I was writing paranormal romances and got deterred into writing true account stories of ghost hauntings in my county. And the first book really has a lot of my own personal history in it and what I've experienced over time, which led me to this ultimate writing of this book. And what I thought was going to be one book has now turned into on book 4 of those in the series. But where I'm going with this is that I was just writing these books, and then all of a sudden these people in the community were reaching out to me. I've got this going on in my home, or I have this going on in my business, and here's a video, here's an audio that I got, and will you bring your paranormal team to our home and try and help us explain what's going on? And so I assembled this paranormal team, and that's what we've been doing now ever since. Yeah. And like you, we go into the building and try and connect with the spirit and acknowledge them and find out what it is exactly that they want to say. I mean, I try to explain to the people that live in the home that you're actually in their space. I mean, you're coming into their territory, and they're confused as to why you're there. Sometimes they don't even know they're dead. So it's kind of like...
Yeah, sometimes they're completely confused because they're like, no, it's my house.
Exactly.
You know, I lived here.
I would love for you to share some of those stories with my listeners, some examples of what you experienced paranormal wise.
Yeah, awesome. That's one of the things that we do on the episodes that we've done on the show, is me being able to walk through properties with the people that know the history of the property with no equipment. And then I go through and tell them who I see, what they tell me, and what happened on the property, which has been kind of fun, because it's fun to be able to tap in and just walk through the properties and see what all happens and what comes and who has something to say. And even stuff that goes way, way back. But I think one of the more interesting, I guess, or one of the really interesting ones that I had was one of my very first house cleansings. And I had met a woman that was at my neighborhood watch, and she said, I've got something interesting going on in my home. And she was like, I don't want to really give you any information. She said, but will you come and just walk around and tell me what you did? And I was like, absolutely. And I went down to her house and I started walking the land and I was like, there's a woman standing by that tree screaming. I was like, she is crying. She is screaming. She is emotionally devastated. And then she turns and looks at me and she goes, for the last 2 years, she says, on the same date, I've had the police show up at my home. And it was because my neighbors called saying that they heard a woman screaming and they came to check on me. It was like a welfare check. And I didn't know what it was and why she's here. And I was like, well, you got a lot more than just her. And I said, with her, she was actually murdered in the creek down behind your property. And I said, and so was her child. And so she can't move on because she said no one's ever heard her story. And it was interesting because as I channeled the woman, there is photographic evidence of that woman in my body, and my face started changing to show bruises and blood and crazy stuff that was, there was evidence of like what she went through when she died. And as soon as her story was told, she was gone. She's never been back.
And did you ultimately verify in history that woman, who she was, what her story was?
I would love to. That's the one area that I would love to be able to pull those components back with, because that has been some of the stuff I've started working through now. That was, like I said, it was one of my first ones. And I didn't know as much as to how to get back. And especially because that woman was a slave, that record, I do not know that it would have been as easy to find. Because I know that it was not specifically, that home was not on that property. She died on that property, but it was a home that when she was trying to run, and it was a slave. And so I know that it was not going to be something that would be easy to track that information down. I started getting some equipment and things like that because I do think that it would be fantastic, not only to be able to find some of the historical stuff, but also to have the scientific data that would back it up. Mm-hmm. Because it's always interesting. I've always just most of the ones that I've done after that one, I've always had, how much do you know on the property? And don't tell me in advance because I don't need it to skew what I get. And I was like, but just I want to know if you'll be able to verify certain information.
I love it when we're able to come full circle, when we're able to connect a name to a spirit. Because really, when you think about it, it's about the landscape of life and the spirits that dwell there. And that love to talk about the history of the town that I'm writing about. And if I have the history of the location, whether it be the home from 1700s, 1800s, or the property, I like to give the reader a little background on what it is that's going on. And then I ultimately tell them what the story is that the person had shared with me. And then if my team has gone in, I can actually share what we've experienced while we were there as well.
Yeah, and those are so interesting. I've had several that they knew all the history of the property, that once I gave the information, they said that it was all accurate. I've had a few that have fallen under the category of it being of slaves and things like that. I did have it verified that there was something was going on with, I guess, or there was slaves that worked at that location. There was different things because of the building's history and old enough, and it made sense. But that has been some interesting. I guess I've actually gotten tied in with a lady that's with our historical society here.
Oh, that's great. That's
and
wonderful.
She has said that she would be totally willing to help me, at least with some of the local stuff. The thing is that, I do much broader area. So, at least I know now locally I've got somebody for this area. So, and that's exciting for me.
Oh, yeah, that's great. It's a great thing when you can make a connection with one of the people from the historical society, for sure. Yeah. You were talking about the screaming woman. I had a story that was very similar to that with somebody that I had interviewed. He had owned a shop in the local town, and people were reporting from the apartments above this woman screaming, "Let me out, let me out." And so bad that they called the police as well. And the police had gone to go and investigate. And when the shop owner showed up, they actually cornered him and said, we would really like for you to allow us to come into your building and inspect it, go through it, because we've gotten calls from neighbors that, there's a woman that's being held against her will, screaming to get out. And of course, he was beside himself. He was like, what the heck? Knew he was paranormal activity in the building, didn't know whether it was female or male, but stuff was happening. But never did he hear anything about a woman screaming, "Let me out." So he lets these cops come in and they searched the facility from top to bottom. They went in the basement, all over the place, couldn't find anything. So at this point, he's freaking out because if it's happened once, it's probably going to happen again. So he calls in a medium friend of mine who ultimately walks in just kind of like you did and gets into that zone and connects with the spirit. And he hears him in from the other room talking to somebody. He only hears obviously the one side and the responses or whatever. And when he comes out, Dave says to him, he says, yeah, got a lady in there and she's the one who's screaming to get out. And she's just trying to scare you and make the situation difficult for you because she doesn't want you here. She sees you moving things in and out constantly, and she doesn't like that. He owned like an estate shop, an antique shop kind of thing. So I made her understand that this is business, and you may be moving stuff out, but you're still going to be moving stuff in, and she doesn't have to worry about it. She could stay here, and you can live together amicably. And got them on the same page, and then she stopped bothering him after that.
Yeah, she stopped screaming about it. So. Yeah, generally, I mean, that's the thing that I guess has been, with especially the paranormal has become so, there's been so many different shows now. There's, so much put into the public eye. And now there's so many people that are being so curious about it. And I think that there is so much needs to be understood about it. And I'm so passionate about the fact that, I'm like, look, if you wouldn't talk to another human being that way, then don't talk to the spirits that way.
They were once human beings. Respect them.
Right. And so have the same respect for them that you would expect for yourself. And especially if you're going to start tinkering into that, I think it's beautiful that you work with or have someone that you work with as a medium. I have found some of the paranormal company groups that they're like, we don't believe in what you do. And I'm like, but why do you do what you do then?
Right. Well, we, as I told you, when I started, I didn't have a paranormal team, and it was kind of thrown in my face. So, bring your paranormal team into our minds. And I was like, oh, great. Thank you so much. And then I'm going, shit, I don't have a paranormal team. So I had to get one together. And what I did was I had gone to the people that I had interviewed, people that are just like you and I who have gifts and would love to do something with it. And so I originally interviewed these 5 wonderful women. And when we went on that first investigation, I opened up the opportunity to those 5. And 3 of them took me up on my offer, and they've been with me ever since. And we've expanded on our group since then, but they're all people that want to make a difference. But what I find a lot about these television shows, though, nowadays, it's very unrealistic. I get very angry when I see these professionals, these so-called professionals, screaming and yelling or being nasty to spirits for rude. One.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And the other thing is making the public think that this is the way it is. Yeah. That's the other thing. They're not being realistic about what it is. So these people have all these expectations, and sometimes they want to go out and do it on their own, and they don't realize what they're getting into. They don't realize what the ramifications can be from their actions.
They do not. And I have I've had more people that have brought to me, I guess, messes that have tried to do stuff like that. And I'm like, you're opening up something that you don't need to be messing with, and you're going to step into something that's going to be more than what you want to deal with. If you go around and it was a legitimate situation where you're out there screaming and acting like you have no respect for them and you're provoking them in ways like that, it's not reality. And then there's also the side of it that it's not always airy-fairy. I think that there's some of the other shows that get a little too much where it's like, oh, well, we can explain everything to her. It's just going to be all nice. Well, no, that's not always going to be the case. There's going to be other stuff that can be really, really not nice. And you have to be honest with them about that too.
The shows that I used to really connect to when I was younger were the ones that didn't make you feel like you were there then when it was happening. It was almost like they told you about what happened and had a replay of it, so to speak. Because to me, that was more realistic. When I'm there, I could be sitting there for 6 hours and nothing will happen. And then that last hour, maybe that's when something happens. Yep. And for me to be able to show an audience would be really nice if I could just have a bunch of actors come in, or even if it's the team members come in and recreate what it is that happened at that investigation to share with the public. So we're not lying to them. We're not saying this just happened.
Right.
We're showing them what happened in a recreation. Are you following me?
Right. Yeah, no, totally. And that's why I guess, I don't know if you've ever seen the one that's Kindred Spirits. And I like them because, they've even shown shows where it's been night after night that they got nothing.
Right.
And I'm like, see, I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty of it and the truthfulness of the way that they actually position the show. So.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you said you have your TV show. Tell me about it. How often does it run? Is it local to you?
It's actually on the Roku network. So it's on you just download an app called Regional Prime Television, and it's on there. Or you can go to my website. I've got all the shows published on my website. I've listed them all there they can be streamed directly from it. And we do them as they come up. That we have not had, it's not been a lot of, I guess, it's whenever I find locations that are, that I feel like are interesting. And I also can make sure that all the stars align, where one, you can I can get the history of the property, or there's somebody that is willing to be able to verify information, because I'm not going to go out there and verify a bunch of stuff and then be like, well, that could be true, but I don't know anything about the history.
Right. Do you have a TV crew that you work with specifically? Are they team members of yours? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine that has got the Regional Prime Television, and he was the one that approached me because it was not something that I'd ever considered. And he was like, people find what you do interesting. And I was like, okay, I mean, why not? We'll do it for fun. And and it's actually turned out to where it's he does really good work, and it's been fun to do. So I just started getting some different equipment though, and so I'm gonna be interested to see when the next show can line up, because it would be fun to be able to add in that extra component.
Yeah, how very exciting, for sure.
So my son was hilarious. He bought me an Ovilus for Christmas, and then he goes, but you can't use it anywhere near me. Okay, Mom?
We used very traditional methods as well. I know there's a lot of equipment out there that people are trying different things, but we really stick to K2s because they're great, audio because they're great. We do have pendulums and that sort of thing, dowsing rods, because they're great tools for them to give you yes and no responses. And then we have cameras here and there where you can pick up on things as well, but that's really where we limit it to. We don't want to have like a whole bunch of different stuff. You know what I mean?
Either. Yeah, I've always taken my pendulum with me for the last several episodes, because I feel like it at least will show some additional. I had the dowsing rods that I've used also, and I think the voice recorder is not something that I literally, after the last show, I was like, you know what, I need to bring a voice recorder, because that would be great.
Audio is the best evidence you can get. There's no denying what's on there.
Right. And even flashlights. I mean, heck, those suckers are great. So, just letting them cut the flashlight on and off. I mean, that's simple.
I know. We use a regular flashlight as well. And sometimes we doubt ourselves, and then they end up proving us wrong. So I love that. I love that too. You were saying that business marketing ways are different for people in the spiritual world business. How so? Why do you say that?
Why do I say that? Because I actually have 20 plus years in marketing, and I helped all kinds of businesses make their business go with marketing for their businesses and things like that. And the traditional, I guess, a lot of the stuff that worked for smaller businesses, when it's a restaurant, or it seems like that's one of those things that people are used to those. Now, I did notice when I first started coming into this, there seemed to be a lot of people that were curious into this, but then a lot of people in the first little bit ran into that they wanted to get something for free, and they were like, it's a gift. And I'm like, your doctor's gifted. Do you pay him? Your therapist is gifted. Do you pay them? I mean, ministers have a gift. I said they still have to have a way to provide for their families.
Right.
And so a lot of that was really a thing at the time. And I think that it seems to be very, very different, because there's going to be always, I think, those ones that are the non-believers. And I don't want that energy anywhere near my page or my marketing stuff, because it bleeds over. And I don't want that dragging that energy down when I've gotten such a great energy that I've worked so hard to get to.
Sure.
Yes, so that's, I guess, where I would say it's just been a little bit more interesting to navigate.
Well, what do you suggest to help people in the field achieve marketing success?
I think that one, if you're looking to really connect with your gifts and share those with people, is establish yourself into some of the different social media platforms that you know and can understand real well. Finding people that you have done work for or have given messages to, even if it's as you're just getting started, and you may have given it to them even before you were in business. Get them to write reviews so that you have something to show that people have actually gotten stuff through you that was legitimate and that they actually took and went somewhere with. And then don't be afraid to go live. Don't be afraid to go live. I mean, I literally was doing it probably once to 3 times a week when I first started out, just to deliver messages and to share my gifts and to kind of let people see my style, because I think that every person's going to have their own style of reading and the type of messages that they can get.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm going to be somebody's shot of whiskey. So, I mean, I'm not going to be here and shooting rainbows and butterflies. So if that's not what you need, then I wouldn't be the right reader and the right medium for you.
And I do agree with you on those reviews. As an author, I know how important those reviews are to people. I look to see before I actually decide to read something. So yeah, reviews are really important. It sounds as though you just say it like it is, but has there ever been a moment you wanted to keep something back from somebody because you felt it might hurt them in a way emotionally, or do you just say it because you're meant to say it?
I think that some of those messages probably have had a kick to people. I never hope to try to bring them any pain. But sometimes certain people need a certain level of pain to wake up from the state that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And they need some information that maybe everyone around them knows, but they're scared to say.
Something that'll kickstart them.
Yeah. A lot of times it is all the time, it's for their better good. So it's, situations that have been like with people that are in abusive relationships and they're trying to hold on, or they don't know how to get out of the relationship. Or there's people that have been addicts and they're struggling with addiction and they don't know how to let it go. And everybody around them will, and I've even had them look at me in the face and they're like, oh no, I don't do that. And I'm like, honey, you came to me because I get messages. So you can lie to everyone else and I'm not judging you, but let's go ahead and talk about it because they're bringing it to me for
right.
You to know. So
do they usually fess up and say, okay?
Yes, especially but when you can bring in certain information that, I've brought in everything from specific drug houses or hotels that they go to, or information that is like, I wouldn't be able to know.
Sure, right. Undeniable.
So I said, I'm not, like I always say, I'm not judging. I don't judge. It's not my place. But here's what I'm going to tell you what's going to happen if you keep going on this path.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of good.
I try. I really, really know that there's a lot of people hurting right now. As there's always been, but I think that it is definitely much different now than it ever has been.
Oh, yeah. And there's a definite divisiveness in the world. There's a lot of people out there trying to bring more and doing and saying whatever they can to make that happen.
Yes.
And it's really sad and it's really scary.
Sad.
And if you're not strong emotionally, it affects you and pulls you down.
Yes. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing people that have been trapped in cycles and been places that they've been stuck in for years, that they have decided that they were ready to heal from and ready to move forward and trying to find a way to get through that so that they could actually move into a better place in their life. And I think that it's been what I delivered a message on, because when COVID first hit, I did do a live because I could feel that everybody needed that. And that was what everybody was asking us is, what do you see? And I'm like, y'all, round one's going to be nothing. Round two's going to be tough. And round three's going to kick you in the face. And I was like, so y'all just better be prepared. Y'all are scared now. And I was like, it's not going to get easier for y'all. And I said, but it's for the ones that are listening and are choosing to understand what we're being guided to. It's not going to be as hard as it is for the rest of them.
Do you think is COVID a natural thing, or was it created and put out there?
It is not a natural thing. I do not think that it was a natural thing. But I do think that it was meant to happen because we as a society, we're all screaming and crying that, we're running ourselves into the ground. We're, ignoring everything in life. We're saying we don't have time for this. We can't do this. We can't do that. And we don't all these different things because we were so stressed and running, so many different directions trying to make life Shangri-La, but we didn't even understand how to connect with the loved ones that we had right in front of our face. Mm. And then you were put in your home, and now some of the people caught that message that they were enjoying that, and they were realizing that that was something that they needed, is to have those people that do support and love them, and they're around again. But there were others that I was literally being told, they were like, these people are passing each other like strangers in the night. Like in the hallways and everything else. And they're just not engaging with the people that they're saying that they didn't have time for. And now I gave them the time and they're still not listening.
Really sad.
It is. So, but I do also, when you ask about, regular messages, every Thursday, I do have either YouTube or Facebook. There is every Thursday. I do have messages there.
Wonderful. Could you please do me a favor and tell my listening audience what your website is, where they can go and find you?
Yeah.
If they want to get their own personal reading or just watch your prior shows and that sort of thing.
clairvoyantjess.com. So clairvoyantjess.com is where you can find the shows. There is a page that has all the shows. On Facebook, every Thursday morning, I post few different stacks of either tarot cards or crystals or whatever, and let people choose a number. And then at the end of that day on Thursday, I actually will read the message. I'll give the messages to whatever it was that I laid out that day that was from the stack choice that they had. So sometimes I'll do them by Facebook Live. Sometimes I'll do it by YouTube Live, but always every Thursday morning, the pictures is put on my Facebook page.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Just a way to still be able to connect, share something, especially with those that still need it. And maybe it's just not something that they can afford at that moment. I can still try to help them in some way.
That's really nice. Well, thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful.
Ghostly listeners, you can follow me on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, where there are links to my books and video updates and photographs from all the Lady Ghostbuster investigations. Also, you can sign up or level up on my author Eleanor Wagner Patreon program. That's Patreon, where you will find special bonus opportunities only available to its patrons, such as one-on-ones with me and co-hosting opportunities on episodes of Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World podcast. Thank you, paranormal enthusiasts, for tuning in today. I hope you'll come back again. Remember to tap into your own gifts. Everyone has them. And in the meantime, make sure you're creeping it real.